The Minnesota Vikings are likely to trade down in the first round of the NFL draft, but what would trades look like? I compiled a few and we'll break them down based on, hey, how does it help the Vikings? Are they getting good value? What some mock trades could potentially look like? Plus, we'll go through my top 100 big board for the NFL draft. I only do one every year because I don't feel it to be a good exercise to complete it until you're done. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner, he is producer Dave. Not in Texas anymore. That is why we did not go live on Wednesday or Monday last week, and our show was on Friday afternoon because Dave has moved. I will not dox him and tell you where he went, but I can tell you.
It's the St. Louis area.
Oh, I was going to say it's got arches, and I was going to hope somebody would be like, "Oh, there's a McDonald's there, cool." Well, welcome.
Oh, there's quite a few.
Yeah. So it's a little loud in the background for Dave, but don't worry. It's only temporary until it closes on the house. We are going to have a lot of fun here tonight. Minnesota Vikings are just 10 days away from the NFL draft, and we have some housekeeping stuff as far as our content with the NFL draft that you'll want to know about. And we're going to talk about my big board, just talk about some of the things. Dave will probably have some questions on why I have certain players where, because look, I'm going to be real. My big board's usually quite a bit different from what the consensus is. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because it's my opinion. The one nice thing about the NFL draft, it's an art form. And everybody's got a different view. And this is what my view is. I'm going to be super high on a couple guys, and I do not care. I believe that they're going to be really good football players. So, with that being said, Dave, beer tonight, no bourbon.
No, bourbon's still packed. So the number 2 daughter said, empty the beer, and I'm stuck with a Michelob Ultra.
You know what you should do? Pour some orange juice in it. I really like that. All right. So let's kind of talk about a couple of things. One, I want to mention this off the top. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated had a really long piece breaking down the Vikings' decision to go with McCarthy. And I thought this tidbit was interesting. Very little about Aaron Rodgers in there, but this little piece made me think a little bit. Aaron Rodgers' big pitch was like, hey, let's make a 1-year run into Lombardi, and I will be a mentor to JJ McCarthy. Wasn't something he was willing to do when it was Jordan Love. And I just found that interesting. You could kind of believe it one of two ways. It's either lip service or he was being real about it. And based on his history, it would be hard for me to completely believe him on the outside. I don't know him personally. I've never talked to Aaron Rodgers. But because of that, I have to question, because historically speaking, he hasn't been willing to be that kind of guy. So I found that one very intriguing, but he also knows that he's coming in here and it's basically a 1-year mercenary role. And if he wants to be the mercenary, well, he's got to help McCarthy at some point, you know? So I found that really interesting. Otherwise, look, the Vikings picked McCarthy over Aaron Rodgers. I would too. Would I have done it 3 years ago? Probably not. I'm going to be honest. He was an MVP 3 years ago. Like, the age deterioration goes quickly, very quickly in today's NFL. When you start to go, you go. So it's not too surprising to me that Rodgers has deteriorated as much as he has, which, whatever, who cares? Not that big of a deal. You have McCarthy. McCarthy's your guy. And that's about all we're going to talk about it. But I did find, Dave, that one little tidbit very interesting, because usually you don't get to hear anything from those types of conversations.
Well, I think he was probably... Did he want to mentor JJ if he was coming over? That was probably a cost he was willing to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be all in, all enthusiastic about it, knowing Rodgers? There's where the doubt comes in. But I'm glad we told him no, because I don't want to put JJ McCarthy on hold another year.
Yeah, I agree completely. Let's transition, because I want to get rid of the whole Aaron Rodgers talk. We've had to talk way too much about it. Dave, let's talk trades. Breer, so he does a version of the Monday morning quarterback column that Peter King used to do. And his structure is just a little bit different. He had an interesting tidbit about Shedeur Sanders. And that tidbit was that he couldn't find a team that had a first round grade on Sanders because he lacks an elite trait. Now, I find that very interesting. Sanders is my quarterback one. I'm just going to be real with you. I think he's the best quarterback in this class. Now, he probably would have been my quarterback 6 last year. Like, this isn't an elite quarterback class. It's just not. But Sanders does all the boring things really well. And I think one of the issues that we have sometimes, there is a ticker on the bottom of the screen. Okay, that's pretty cool. I know you
Is
talked
it
about
too small?
I think it's I think it is, because the white that contrasted like next to the purple and stuff doesn't pop as much. Like if it was just like sheer black, if that makes sense. I think it could probably be a little bigger, but it's freaking cool. We're about to get to 1 overall, as you can see my eyes completely away from the camera. Very cool. Dave did that all on his own without me asking. I think that's really cool to have that. And yeah, we're about to get to my number 1 overall player, who is Travis Hunter, the cornerback wide receiver combo out of Colorado. I think special player. If Deion Sanders was an inside coach, he'd be getting a lot more love. But he's getting that kind of love because Deion Sanders is his head coach. Because Deion knows how to be that kind of player. But I digress. So one of the reasons why I talk about Shedeur Sanders, the Vikings don't need a quarterback. But teams saying that they don't really have a first round grade on him, to me, tells me he's probably going to fall out of the top 5. And if he falls out of the top 5, Dave, well, that also means he could fall to like the mid-20s. And if he falls to the mid-20s, that's where it involves the Minnesota Vikings. Because now the Vikings are in a prime spot to trade up for that guy. So what I ended up doing was I sent Dave, I think 5 different graphics. And it's from a guy named Joseph Hefner, who I believe is a Chiefs writer. He created this, like, it's like a website gimmick. I think it's so you put in like your trade and it spits out what the trade would be like value wise for each trade chart. And I think it's really cool to kind of break that down. So we're going to do that here tonight. We've got trades with the Bills, the Chiefs, who are 2 aggressive teams that like to move up in that first round range. And then the Browns, the Giants, and the Patriots, who have a lot of capital, and they need to get a couple of players to really fortify that roster right now. So, Dave, let's start with the Bills. Let's bring that up, and let's kind of talk about what some of these trades would look like. And these are mock trades. They may look completely different, but it's to give you a general idea. So here's what we're looking at, okay? The Vikings are going to be on the bottom of all of these because they're the team that's trading down. When you look at the chart, the first 2 charts are the Jimmy Johnson and the Rich Hill. These are the conventional trade charts where each pick has an assigned value based on where it is in the draft. It has nothing to do with like how like the draft class. It's not weighted. It's basically the Jimmy Johnson is just a standard chart. Rich Hill is built with history. So how teams have valued these picks over the years. The last 4 charts are analytically based. So the over the cap one, OTC, is built mainly on cost. So the contract. The higher the pick, the higher the contract. The Ben Baldwin chart, if you're trading up for a quarterback, it says to disregard because quarterbacks are such a high factor and they create way more value than any other position. Even a bad quarterback creates more valuable than pretty much everybody else that isn't a quarterback. So that skews things quite a bit. And the way we're kind of doing this is you want to look at the conventional, you want to look at the analytical. If you want, I would highly recommend you go subscribe to Arif Hassan's Wide Left. After day 1 last year, I wrote about 2,000 words breaking down the Vikings' history with trades. And it's a really good piece, and it breaks down what they look for, how they do things, and it rules. I think you have a lot of really interesting things there. So let's kind of talk about it. Here, the Vikings get value across the board. It looks like late 3, early to mid 4th round pick kind of value. But they give up 24 and 97. And you're going to see them give up 97 in a lot of these trades. For the reason being that you're going to improve that pick and still get another pick. So they take 97 and basically turn it into 62. And then they also get 132, which is a 4th round pick. So they improve their 3rd round pick to a late 2nd and get a 4th round pick in return. They're getting a lot of value here. But that's the kind of thing that the Vikings are going to be looking to do, and something that they've done a lot. Not necessarily a 1-for-1, but you're going to swap picks to be able to get them in better spots. Remember, when we traded with the Lions, it was 12 and 46 for 32, 34, and 66. So it was like a 2-for-3. And that's kind of the same thing here. Now, it could just be, hey, we're going to give you our 3rd round pick, which I believe is 94. And that's going to be the move. We're going to give you 24 and 94, and that's the trade. That's plausible. But I think this kind of scenario is something that adofo-mensah is probably going to prioritize. So that's why we took these and approached it. All right. So, Dave, let's pull up the Chiefs one next, because I think as we continue to go down, you're going to start to see a trend on kind of how I've constructed these. And this one's a little different. This is just the top of the 3rd round. Because remember, the Chiefs have the Titans pick in the 3rd round, which is 66. So you're getting heavy value here, which the conventional charts is like a late 3rd round pick. So they don't view with the Jimmy Johnson 24 to 31 to be that high of a pick. The Vikings, when they made the trade, I believe it was, they went from 25 to 31. They got a 4th and a 6th from the 49ers, I believe, right? Or was it just a 4?
I don't remember.
Well, I'm going to pull it up here. All right. Yep. They got a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick. So a 3rd round pick is going to be semi-similar value. Yeah, the Vikings got 117 and 176. So they could do that, but we also know that Rick Spielman wanted to create quantity. And then he wanted to use that and get quality. Now, we can argue that his strategy worked and it didn't work, but that was kind of how he views things. And Gaetano's Christmas channel asked, Tyler, do you think that teams will be interested in trading up, though? That's why I brought up the Shedeur Sanders bit, because I think a falling player is going to be where teams are going to want to trade up. Or maybe it's, hey, the Rams are 2 picks behind you. They give you a 4th round pick and be like, hey, we just want this guy. Yeah, you take that all day. You take it all day.
Or somebody in the high 2nd wants to move into the 1st, and they're willing to pay for it because there's a guy they absolutely have to have.
And that's what Gaetano's Christmas channel is asking. Like, if they're going to be interested in trading up, it all depends on who's available. And that's the tough part that I can't tell you. I can't tell you this guy's going to be available because we just don't know. We can project. And that's why the intriguing piece about Shedeur Sanders, nobody really having a first round grade on him that Breer has talked to, which Breer is a very connected guy. He can call pretty much anybody in the league and get an answer on stuff. So if he's not getting an answer, that tells you something. That tells you he's probably going to fall. And if he falls, that could end up being a benefit for the Vikings because they could capitalize on a trade down. We'll find out because it takes two to tango, or a team may want to jump like the Steelers. The Steelers are rumored, from everything I've heard, to love Shedeur Sanders. So we'll see. But I want to give everybody an interesting outlook on kind of what some of these trades will look like. And the Chiefs, they're hyper aggressive. They will trade up and get guys. They trade up for Trent McDuffie, trade up for Xavier Worthy. Usually when they trade up, they end up being right. Hell, they trade up for Patrick Mahomes. All right, Dave, let's go to the Browns because that is next on our chronological list. All right. So this one, the Vikings give 24 and 187 for 33, 94 and 104. So this one's structured a little bit differently. You don't get that pick in the high third round, but you get it at the end of the third round. I think 94 is actually, that's the Bills pick. That's the pick that they gave for Amari Cooper. And then 104 is at the top of the fourth round. So you're getting two picks in the area of 97. So you'd have 94, 97, and 104. You could package two of those up and go up to like pick 70 or 80 and be able to get a guy that you really, really like. But you're also giving up 187. So you're not getting 3 for 1, 3 for 2. You're netting one pick in the positive, but you get to take 187 and turn it from a mid 6 to a high 4. That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. Plus, you kind of look across the board, you're getting really good value. A lot of times teams will get really good value on these charts, but it all depends. And as Gaetano's Christmas channel mentioned, who is going to want to trade? Well, especially like if not a lot of teams want to trade, these numbers are going to go down. And if these numbers end up going down, the Vikings just may say, screw it, we're going to stick and pick. There's a whole lot of different elements that go into this entire conversation. And I'm really intrigued to see how it all plays out. Because the Vikings have traded with 3 of their 4 first-round picks. They traded 12 to go to 32. That was Lewisine. They did not trade the Jordan Addison pick, even though they had opportunity to. They traded 11 to get 10. They traded up to 23 with pick 42. And then they traded from 23 to 17. This is a team that has no issue trading if they have a target in mind.
You forgot they traded from 11 to 10.
I said that.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. They only gave up 128 and 189, I think it was, which wasn't a lot. I mean, you'd have liked to have 128 in the whole process of, hey, we didn't have a lot of picks. You didn't have any on day 2, 1 in the 4th round and not another one until the 6th. So in the 2nd through 5th rounds, you had 1 pick, but you got the quarterback and you didn't give up like a 1st round or 2nd round pick next year. So who cares? They ended up trading 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks anyways, but that's a different part of the conversation. All right, we have 2 more to go through. Let's look at the New York Giants quick. And one thing that you'll notice with these is the conventional trade charts and the analytical trade charts are in agreement. That's not how it's always been. Did you not get those? I thought I sent you those.
You sent me those 3. Let's see.
Yep, they're in your DMs.
Yes, there's the Giants.
Davey makes a point that if we trade, we must get value and depth. Value is going to be an interesting conversation because of everything we've already talked about. how much value you're going to get with teams not having such a high value in this draft class. That's where trading down becomes difficult. There has to be a player that they really want, that they're willing to give up capital for. Like the Vikings tried to trade up for Justin Fields. By try, they didn't really try at all. But they offered pick 78 and like a 4th round pick to go from 14 to not 8. And they got laughed at. That's not really trying. Anthony mentions the 7th round picks from Houston, Jacksonville. I don't think they're getting a pick from Jacksonville. That's conditional. And that if I think Cam Robinson played enough for that 4th round pick, that 5th round pick becomes a 4, and then that 7 voids. So I don't even know if we can end up doing that. All right, this is another one where it's a little bit interesting. You get 34 and 65 and pick 105, and you give up 24 and 97. It's another one of those 3-for-2 situations. And this is where Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has been very creative. Very creative. And being willing to part with some of your picks to improve them, or you take a small drop. So it's an 8-spot drop from 97 to 105, but you get the top of the 3rd round pick. And you know what? There's value to having that pick. You take that. That's not bad. And it's not that much of a gain for the Vikings. Like, okay, the analytical charts, it's like, it's like a mid 3. The Rich Hill chart says early 5. Jimmy Johnson says late 3. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Mid 5 for the Rich Hill and mid 4 for the Jimmy Johnson. Like, that's not a ton of value. It's value that teams are going to be willing to give up, especially in a draft class like this. But they have to have a guy that they love. And that's where Shedeur Sanders can come into play. Maybe it's Jackson Dart, which puke. Maybe it's Jalen Milroe. We don't know yet. Anthony asks if there's a chance you can still get Kenneth Grant. I don't think you could be able to get him at 24. I think he's gone in the teens. I actually gave him to the Chicago Bears at 10 in the mock draft we did last Friday, which I recommend you go listen or watch to. And while you're here, like, comment, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Our goal was to get to almost 6,000 subscribers. 5,700 would be really nice too. We're almost to 56. When we started here, we were 11 away from that 5,600 mark. So hit that subscribe button. Help us out. We'll do the program. No, we'll be live day 2 and 3 of the draft. We'll be live the morning of day 1 of the draft. And we're going to have a lot of fun. You're not going to want to miss any of it here, guys. So the Giants one, I think, is plausible, but they also can't take Shedeur Sanders at 3. If they do, this is probably off the table. Last one, the New England Patriots. This is where things get interesting. They would not be trading up for a quarterback. They'd be trading up for an offensive lineman. They'd be trading up for a fallen receiver. They won't be trading up for that quarterback. And that's where things get interesting. So this one is similar, but it's also different. 24 and 97, and you get 38, 69, and 77 because they have 2 third-round picks, one of them from the Atlanta Falcons in the Matt Judon trade. So all of these have similar builds, but they're all slightly different. So you would pick 3 times before 77, but then you wouldn't pick again until 139. Not ideal to have that kind of gap, but you know what? It's okay. You're getting around a late 3, early 4 round value averaging across the board. I prefer the Rich Hill trade chart because it's built more on historical data when it comes to trades. Early 5th round pick. Yeah, I'd say that's fair value for the Patriots to give up here, especially if they want that offensive lineman. That offensive lineman can do wonders for them. Absolute wonders. And the trades may be a little bit more simplistic than this. The Patriots may just give up 38 and 69 and not do the 77-97 swap. And you know what? I think that'd be fine. I think that would be fine. But trading is a real thing. And the Vikings have been linked to a lot of different players. But it takes 2 to tango. And I think this is a good baseline for what trades might look like. Because, well, you have to have something to compare it to. And that's why I highly recommend that everybody go read my piece at Wide Left. Just Google Kwesi adofo-mensah NFL Draft Wide Left. You'll find it. Subscribe to Reef's Substack. I've got cool stuff on there. A friend Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings does cool stuff on there. And then Reef is just a sicko degenerate, just like us. And he's going to have the consensus board ready to rock. I think that comes out later this week. We're not going to want to miss that. But Dave, I kind of went on a little bit of soliloquy there. What did you think of these trades and kind of how they were constructed?
I thought they were pretty realistic. I had no issue with them. We came out ahead, unlike Kwesi's first draft. I think Kwesi's learned a lot. And I think these trades benefit the Vikings. And it's all determined of who they've got their eye on. And if there's 5 guys that they have their eye on at 24 that they want, that they grade relatively equally, they're going to trade back. Betting at least one of them's there. Question is how far?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I think we're going to... One of the big problems about the NFL draft and trying to predict things like trades, you have to know who's going to be available. I can't tell you, especially in a class like this, any kind of certainty that one player is going to be available, another player isn't going to be available. Because if anybody tells you they know, they don't. None of us really know. It's hard to really know. So I highly recommend kind of taking a look and play with that what do you call it? That tool. It's got hefe'shandiwork.com/shiny/trade-calculator. It's a fantastic tool, easy to use, and then it spits out what the like how valuable the trade is for each team. It's awesome. It's one of my favorite tools that I use every single year because it helps you quantify. And it's much easier than having to look up certain things. Much, much, much easier.
Absolutely. Now, I've looked today at possible trades as well. One of the things I was looking at was, what are the rumors around the league? Who's looking to trade? And I got a list that Tennessee's possibly out of number 1. Not that we're in play for that. Giants, Jets, Browns. Browns are looking for a quarterback. Giants could be looking for a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The Titans may be going for a veteran quarterback. Kirk Cousins. The Falcons for an edge rusher. Seattle looking for more linemen. The Steelers, obviously quarterback, because who's going to play there? You got the Bears are looking for more offensive line help. The Bills, like you've hit up, and the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles seems to be popping up as a common one. So who knows? It's going to be interesting. And then there's possible trades of players we haven't even discussed that are out there. There's, let's see, Brandon Ayuk could be available from the Niners, Micah Parsons from the Cowgirls, and George Pickens from the Steelers.
Pickens is an interesting one. There's a lot of really interesting player trades. I don't think the Vikings will do any of those, except for maybe a backup quarterback. That's the one position I think they could acquire in a trade. But I think it would be a pick swap kind of deal.
And it's the whole purpose of this is seeing who's talking about it. Who's who might be those teams that want to trade up with us at 24? Because they're discussing it, elsewhere.
I'll answer a couple questions here, then we're going to move on. Chris asks, are there some teams the Vikings have favorable trade history with? I don't think we have enough data to know that from a adofo-mensah standpoint. There have been teams historically where they do make multiple moves with. I think the Patriots, they've made multiple player moves with in the past however many years. Trying to think. The Bills, I think the Vikings and Bills have made multiple moves, but I don't think we have any semblance of consistency with Kwesi. I think the only team he's made more than one move with is the Lions, and that's a weird one. There was one more in here that I wanted to ask. Cause and Effect asks, Forno, why do I continue hearing about Addison and trade talks? I don't know. I think it's just fans being fans, and it's a boring time of year. Personally, I don't read anything into it. I don't think he's going to be. Oh, the Texans. Yeah, that's a good point. They have made multiple with the Texans. I really don't think that it's going to be a thing with whatchamacallit. Why is my brain grabbing? Oh, Addison. Yeah. And Jason says it's because we're not going to pay Addison $25+ million per year with Jefferson. I wouldn't count that out. The Eagles are paying AJ Brown 33, Devontae Adams 24, and Jalen Hurts 51, while having one of the more expensive offensive lines in the league. If you want to keep the player, you can do it. So to me, that's not even a good argument. Because especially with how the Vikings are so good at maneuvering the cap, you like the player, just make it happen. Last thing, Daniel says we need to move all the way up for Gent. He is LT reincarnated. Yeah, he is. That's LaDainian Tomlinson. I think he's that good. But before we move on to talk about my top 100 big board, I want to talk about our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Masters was this weekend, and I had a lot of fun with some lineups, trying to capitalize on Rory McIlroy's big win. Unfortunately, I was a day late on both him and Bryson DeChambeau's rounds. They were above what the number was on Underdog, and I missed. But you know what? It's fun to kind of keep track. Fun to have a little bit of something else to root for, not just Rory finally getting that monkey off his back. And you could tell that when it finally happened, he collapsed, and it was just a beautiful moment. And you know what? If you won on Underdog this over the weekend, you got to kind of enjoy it with him in a different way. It's easy. All you got to do is pick a lineup, 2 to 8 different players, and go over or under on a stat. And that's it. And you can win up to 1,000 times your wager. And it's available throughout the majority of the country. And if you're not in one of those Underdog states, congratulations. You probably have a full-blown sports book. But you should just drive across state lines. And if you're in Iowa, drive up to Minnesota, have a good time. All you got to do is enter the promo code FORNO, FORNO, on your first deposit, and you can get up to $1,000. $1,000 in bonus credits. It's a lot of fun. And the UFL is around. NBA playoffs are starting. Baseball. There's a lot of fun to be had with sports, especially if you're like going to a Twins game. Throw in a lineup. Bet the over on Byron Buxton injuries, 0.05. But you got to be at least 18 in most states, 19 in some, and 21 in others. If you are concerned, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Dave. Let's talk about my big board. And if you've been paying attention, it's been on the ticker at the bottom of the screen all show long. But let's have a conversation about it because I think it's very interesting.
Let's.
Dave, you kind of took a look. You constructed the ticker. What are the things that stood out to you about the big board?
All I did was copy and paste. That's all I did. I looked at it briefly in the notes. It's a big board. You don't have Gray's Able rated high enough, but that's okay.
No, I don't. And you know what? I feel pretty good about having Gray's Able exactly where I do. Where do I have Gray's Able? Oh, 57. Yeah, it might be a little low, but I'm okay with that. I think he just has too many issues. While the potential's there, I think the bust factor is high with him based on his play style and the issues he has. I don't think the FCS thing matters with his evaluation that much because you see him playing enough high level of competition. Then the Senior Bowl really eliminated that. But it's what he does and how he goes about it that it just has me concerned. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay having him low. And if he's great, I see the path. I get it. But it's not always about upside. It's about the odds you think that they're going to make that upside. And I think it's like 50-50. And to me, that's a guy I'm going to bet a little lower on because I'm less certain of the potential outcome. Whereas other guys, I'm much more certain about the potential outcome. So
Donovan Jackson.
Yes, I'm way more certain about Donovan Jackson. I think there's maybe not as much upside, but it's a much higher floor. Where I just think you're getting, at worst, a really solid professional football player for 10 years. And to me, that's a valuable asset. Now, do you want to take that guy first round? Completely different question. But Donovan Jackson, I have at 31, which would put him in the range to be selected in the first round. But that's kind of, I approach this so differently across the board. I will say, if you guys want to look at it, because I don't think Dave has full blown graphics. If you go to A to Z Sports, it's
a lot more readable there. Yeah, it's in chart form.
I have it real nice. It's a very, very nice format. I will actually go to the YouTube video and I will put it in the comments.
Now, Chris says, your big board, who you are projecting to each pick, assuming no trades, or is it rankings based on skill ability purely?
Hold on. What?
Chris is asking, is it a draft projection or is it how you rank the players based on their athletics?
Just
skills?
Players. How good do I think these players are? And to me, that's, I think, the better way to go about it. It's how good are the players? And my projection for the players is going to be completely different. And that's kind of where I sit. Like, I could do a projection big board, but that, to me, that's just a mock draft. This is how I view the class just compared to each other. So probably the biggest surprise of my big board will start here. Shemar Stewart, 3rd overall, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. People will talk to you about his production. His production was low. But what Texas A&M asked him to do, and was a big reason for that, they asked him to maneuver. They asked him to play a lot of contain. They asked him to do a lot of those kind of things. They didn't ask him to pin his ears back and rush the passer. So you get him in the NFL. When he does pin his ears back and rush the passer, he's really, really good. But context is needed with some of these numbers, like pass rush win rate and like defensive run stops, because there's like, those can be super skewed because if the run doesn't go to you, it can impact you negatively, and you couldn't have made the play anyways. So you have to look at so many things with context, and I just don't think enough of that has been done with Stewart. I think he's one of the best players in this class. You mean he's 3 on my board. I love Shemar Stewart. Absolutely love him. One of the other big surprises, I'm probably a little higher in Jihad Campbell than most people. He's 7th on my board. You guys have heard me talking about it. I love Jihad Campbell. That is a do-it-all linebacker. But I'm low on Mason Graham. The A to Z consensus board has him second overall. I have him 19th. I see a good player. I see a player worthy of a mid-first round pick. I don't see a game breaker, Dave. I don't see a player who I can trust to be a wrecker on rundowns all the time. I think he struggles against double teams. I think he struggles against power. His short arms can be a real hindrance once he engages. The really good thing about his game is he doesn't have to engage often because he's so fast and quick. Well, once you get caught, how do you handle that? And I think there are some real struggles there. And that's why I just don't see him as an elite prospect. Don't worry, Anthony. Travion Henderson is in there. Let me find him. Travion Henderson is 36. I really like Henderson a lot. Didn't make the All-Forno team, but I mean, only six players made it this year. Only 2 players max per position. That's my rule. Otherwise, I could just put in like 6 receivers because I love watching receivers. Probably the other really big one. I have Quincy Riley at 28th overall. I think on the PFF board, he's 160th. Like, he's going to be in like the 100s on the consensus board. I don't care. This is a good football player, and he should be worthy of like thinking about at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second. It's a weird class. I love him. I'm going to pound the table for him. I was right on his teammate Jarvis Brownlee Jr. last year. I'm going to be right in Quincy Riley this year. I believe it. That's why I'm so out of consensus on that. I believe it. And that's why you come here, because I tell you what I think and what I believe. This ain't just some bullshit lip service.
Chris, ask one quick question. Based on the Vikings' current squad, do you think the Vikings what is their likelihood of trading up, staying pat, or trading down for any of these guys?
I'd put trading up at like 5%. There's going to be a guy or two that they just think are just too good to pass on, that if you see them within range, that they'll have a plan to trade up. For me, it's Shemar Stewart and Jihad Campbell. If those guys are available like 17, I'm making calls because I think they can be real difference makers on this defensive unit. Is it the best use of resources? No. But I think these guys are true difference makers. So I'm considering it. I think the likelihood of trading down is probably like 65% and then 30% staying pat. You have to find somebody willing to trade down. Guarantee you they already have parameters for multiple trades done. Now is when you have the ability to make multiple moves and have those conversations with other GMs. You do have them on draft day, but that's more of a finalizing. It's not having a brand new conversation. Sometimes you do, where it's like, hey, this is my offer. Take it or leave it. But a lot of these trades derive from like the combine and pro days. The Vikings trade with the Lions derive from March. That's how the stuff happens. Discussing asks, what about Will Johnson? Will Johnson, for me, is 21. I have real concerns about his long speed and his ability to recover. Like once he gets stacked, it's almost like he's done. But if he keeps things in front of him, he's real good. So that's kind of where I'm at there. Really good football player, but not great. We have Graham from West Fargo. Hell yeah. I lived in Fargo for 6 years. I love that place. I miss Fargo. Fargo is one of my absolute favorite places in the world, which is weird, but I have a lot of great memories up in Fargo. Also reminds me of when I had my older Chevy trucks. That 05, if I could find another 05, I'd probably sell my 18 and get it. I love that 05. Oh, you shut up, Dave.
Hey, I come from the town, was stationed up in the town that has a hockey team.
Oh yeah, Grand Forks. But Headwin's like Vikings should draft Forno's other show, Meat and Potatoes. Hey, the hope is that Meat and Potatoes will be back for the season. Off season is a little harder to do a show like that because of what the content is. So, but yeah, Dave, looking at the big board, and guys, if you have any more questions on the big board, throw names in the chat. I'll answer questions. Anthony asked if Emin Worry, Grant, and Zabel are on the board at 24. Oh, it's Grant. Easily. Kenneth Grant on my board is 14. Emin Worry is... Where is Emin Worry? He ended up a lot lower than I expected. Emin Worry is 25. Gray Zabel is 57. Ben Morrison, the second, Graham asks, yeah. I don't know how good his hip is. That's a problem for me. If the Vikings are good with the hip, because I kept asking, is it the labrum? Is it the joint? Is it the bone? What is the deal with the hip? It's a labrum. So is he going to have fluid enough hips? Because he did have some stiffness on tape. So answering that question is going to be huge on whether or not I believe that he should be the guy. Discussing asks, so Barron over Johnson? No, I'm low on Jahdae Barron, actually. He's 33rd. I am great as a safety. I don't think he should be an outside corner at the next level. I don't. I think he could. I think would be best if you play him like the Steelers use Minkah Fitzpatrick as kind of like a joker. You can play him over the top. You can play him in the box. You can play him in the slot. I think he's best doing that than just playing outside. Son of a Beaver is like 57. Oh, hell nah to Gray Zabel. And you know what? That's your opinion, man. And that's okay. We can disagree.
I agree with you, son of a Beavers.
Like, we can disagree on that. I think Zabel is just too volatile of a player for my liking at the spot. But if they took him, I'd be a little surprised. But whatever, I'll deal with it. I'm not gonna like throw a fit. I just wouldn't care for it that much. Anything else for questions, Dave, before we go?
Bulldog asks, how will the interior D-line look now that we have Hargraves and Allen? Will Phillips still stick in the middle?
Yes, Phillips is going to stay in the middle. Now, if you get a nose tackle that you love, then maybe you have like Hargrave come off the bench. Phillips is your base package guy, and then Hargrave is like your rotational pass rusher. And then you can use him and Allen like 45 to 50 snaps a game. Try and keep them a little fresher. Like, I think that might be the path. But you also have to love, maybe Taki Taimani takes this massive step. And if he does, he plays 25, 30 snaps a game. That's a huge win for you. You keep your pass rushers fresher. Anything else, Dave?
Son of a Beavers asked, could Arroyo, the tight end from Miami, if I remember correctly, slip to number 97?
I'm going to guess no, but it's definitely possible. Probably put about 30% likelihood. I think he's likely to, what do you call it? Likely to go around pick 70. That'd be my guess. Discussing asks about Trey Amos. Amos, solid football player, 35th on the board. I think with Amos, there is a good amount to like, but I don't love him. Second round player to me. And you know what? That's okay to be a second round player. He ran in the low 4.4s, Dave. He kept getting stacked. Like, why are you running so fast, but you keep getting beat deep? Like, what's the deal? I haven't been able to answer that question with Trey Amos yet.
Maybe how he approaches the routes. Mentally.
It's possible. That's just one concern I had. Zy Alexander. I actually am not sure if I have Zy Alexander in the top 100. Let me look. I think he just missed. Yep, he just missed the top 100. Good player, but I preferred other guys more. And with that, Dave, I think that's our show. We'll end with this. Can you see a world where we draft Colston Loveland? I don't know, maybe. I would say no, because I think I'd prefer just a straight wide receiver in that spot than Loveland. But never say never. I'd put it, if he's on the board, I'd put it at like a 0.1% chance. But it's not 0. Thank you guys so much for joining us here tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, because we're going to have a lot of stuff over the next week and a half. And it's going to come at different times. So you're going to want to know what's going on. And we're going to have a lot of fun leading up to the NFL draft. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. We will see you Wednesday night at 6:05 p.m. Central.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!